Shri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Shtapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Scha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganathan Vitam Tam Sujivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Purjana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hare Priye Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we're reading chapter 18, text 3 to 13. Tyajam doshavad ityeke karma prahur manishinaha yagyadana tapa karma na tyajam iti chapare. Some learned men declare that all kinds of fruitive activities should be given up, but there are yet other sages who maintain that acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance should never be abandoned. Nishchayam Shrinume Tatra Tyaje Bharata Satama Tyago Hi Purusha Vyagra Trividha Samprakirtitaha. O best of the Bharatas, hear from me now about renunciation, O tiger among men. There are three kinds of renunciation declared in the scriptures. Yagya dana tapa karma nyatyajyam karyam evatat Yagyodanam tapaschaiva pavanani manishrinam. Acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance are not to be given up, but should be performed. Indeed, sacrifice, charity, and penance purify even the great souls. Itanyapi tu karmani sangam tyaktva phalani cha kartavyani time parta nishchitam matam uttamam. All these activities should be performed without any expectation of result. They should be performed as a matter of duty, O son of Pritha. That is my final opinion. Niyatasya tu sanyasaha karmano no papadyate mohatasya parityagas tamasa parikirtitaha. Prescribed duties should never be renounced. If by illusion one gives up his prescribed duties, such renunciation is said to be in the mode of ignorance. Dukam ityeva yat karma kaya klesha bhayatyajat sakritva rajasam tyagam naiva tyaga phalam labet. Anyone who gives up prescribed duties as troublesome or out of fear is said to be in the mode of passion. Such action never leads to the elevation of renunciation. Karyam ityeva yat karma niyatam kriyate arjuna sangam tyaktva phalam chaiva satyaga satviko mataha. But he who performs his prescribed duty only because it ought to be done and renounces all attachment to the fruit, his renunciation is of the nature of goodness, O Arjuna. Na dveshtya kushalam karma kushale na nusajate tyagi sattva samavishto medavi chinna samshayaha. Those who are situated in the mode of goodness, who neither hate inauspicious work nor are attached to auspicious work, have no doubts about work. Nahi deha brita shakyam tyaktum karman yasheshataha yastu karma palatyagi satyagitye yabidiyate. It is indeed impossible for an embodied being to give up all activities. Therefore it is said that he who renounces the fruits of action is one who has truly renounced. Anishtam ishtam mishram cha trividham karmana phalam bhavatya yaginam pretya natu sannyasinam kvachit. One who is not renounced, for one who is not renounced, the threefold fruits of action, desirable, undesirable, and mixed, accrue after death. But those who are in the renounced order of life have no such results to suffer or enjoy. Panchaitani mahabaho karanani nibodame sankye kritante proktani siddhaye sarva karmanam adishtanam tata karta karanam cha pratag vidham vivid sorry vividash cha pratag cheshta daivam chaivatra panchamam. O mighty armed Arjuna, learn from me of the five factors which bring about the accomplishment of all action. These are declared in Sankhya philosophy to be the place of action, the performer, the senses, the endeavor, and ultimately the supersoul. Okay, so back to text 3. Some learned men declare that all kinds of fruitive activities should be given up, but there are yet other sages who maintain that acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance should never be abandoned. Purport. There are many activities in the Vedic literatures which are subjects of contention. For instance, it is said that an animal can be killed in a sacrifice, yet some maintain animal killing is completely abominable. Although animal killing in a sacrifice is recommended in the Vedic literature, the animal is not considered to be killed. The sacrifice is to give a new life to the animal. Sometimes the animal is given a new animal life after being killed in the sacrifice, and sometimes the animal is promoted immediately to the human form of life. But there are different opinions among the sages. Some say that animal killing should always be avoided, and others say that for a specific sacrifice, it is good. All these different opinions on sacrificial activity are now being clarified by the Lord himself. So in the Vedas, there's prescription for meat eaters. So if one wants to eat meat, they can take, there's a specific um, rule or prescription that they can take a goat and take it before the demigoddess Kali and sacrifice they can kill the goat after there's a whole procedure that the goat is made clean with some sort of a bath, and then they speak a mantra into the goat's ear, and the mantra means, I'm killing you now. Similarly, you in your next body will get the opportunity to kill me. So there's this regulation, and then that way, and they can only do it like once a month. They can only do this sacrifice once a month, offer some goat or some animal that doesn't have much use, not something like a cow that provides so many different types of food, milk, ghee, yogurt, all of these things. And then also provides its cow dung for so many purposes. Everything from the cow is useful, but they use some animal that doesn't have much use and they sacrifice it before Kali, and they can do it once a month with the understanding that this animal can kill me in its next life. So we can see, since it's something that's not good, there's a prescription to only do it a certain amount of, it's limited. They can only, it's not that they can sacrifice 1,000 goats in like an assembly line or every day, but it's once a month. They kill the goat, and there's a whole ritual for it. So we can see something that's not good for us is actually, there's a limit on it. Just like different things people can buy, or even with alcohol. If one wants to drink alcohol, first they have to become a certain age. They have to, when they go into the bar, they show their license that, yes, I'm this old, and then they can get it. So there's restrictions and prescriptions for things that are actually harmful. Otherwise, there wouldn't be any sort of rule about it. So this injunction in the Vedas is meant to restrict someone, and in this way, even though they're in a very low platform of life, wanting to eat meat and kill animals and things like this, they can actually become regulated and purified over time. But we see, since there's some prescription there, some regulation, then it's understood that this activity actually should be given up altogether. So if one can do that from the very beginning, then that's best. But if not, then they can follow the prescription that here you're going to do this activity that isn't good for you, but at least do it in this regulated way. So that's one way that animal killing is discussed in the Vedas. But the other way is that there's this the sacrifices that we hear about, like um what is it? The name for the horse sacrifice? No, Ashvamedha. So in the Ashvamedha sacrifice, there's a horse. It's a whole elaborate thing. It's very opulent. But the animal that's sacrificed, it's not actually getting killed per se, but it gets a new life right there. So these sacrifices were made to actually test the power of the Vedic mantras. So some brahmanas who can chant it properly, they chant this mantra and the animal enters the fire and then it and loses that body, but then it walks out with a new fresh body. Goes in as an old horse, comes out as a young horse. Or there's some where they even get promoted to a higher grade of life, like a human form or something. So it wasn't actually for killing the animal, but it's to actually show the efficiency of the Vedic mantras, and it gave the animal a new life. But there's never anything for, like, just plain sense enjoyment, like killing a bunch of animals and then keeping their body in the freezer and slaughterhouses and all that. There's nothing like that. And so this is discussed by Lord Chaitanya and the Kaviraj. The Is that what the name is for that person? The person who was in charge of the Muslim government where Lord Chaitanya was staying. The Qazi, yeah, Chand Qazi. Lord Chaitanya has this discussion with him once he holds the first ever non-violent, non-cooperation movement. So that we can hear about that in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. But the Chand Qazi asks him, he says, how come in your scriptures there's actually Lord Chaitanya asks him that the you drink your mother's milk as a child, and then when you get older, you drink the cow's milk. So the cow is one of your mothers. So how is it that you justify killing your own mother? And he says, well, in your scripture, Chankazi says, in your scriptures, there's injunctions for killing animals. So how do you explain that? And then Lord Chaitanya gave that whole explanation that those sacrifices aren't actually for killing those animals, but they're testing the power of the Vedic mantras, and the animals given a new life. Um, and then as they further discussed, eventually Chankazi says, yeah, actually you're right. In the scriptures of the meat eaters, they're actually just full of speculations and misinterpretations. So they come to that conclusion. And eventually Chankazi says there will always be no one will stop the Harinam in this town. O best of the Bhartas, hear from me now about renunciation. O tiger among men, there are 3 kinds of renunciation declared in the scriptures. Purport. Although there are differences of opinion about renunciation, here the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, gives his judgment, which should be taken as final. After all, the Vedas are different laws given by the Lord. Here the Lord is personally present, and his word should be taken as final. The Lord says that the process of renunciation should be considered in terms of the modes of material nature in which they are performed. Acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance are not to be given up, but should be performed. Indeed, sacrifice, charity, and penance purify even the great souls. Purport. The yogis should perform acts for the advancement of human society. There are many purificatory processes for advancing a human being to spiritual life. The marriage ceremony, for example, is considered to be one of these sacrifices. It is called Vivaha Yagya. Should a sannyasi who is in the renounced order of life and who has given up his family relations encourage the marriage ceremony? The Lord says here that any sacrifice which is meant for human welfare should never be given up. Vivaha Yagya, the marriage ceremony, is meant to regulate the human mind to become peaceful for spiritual advancement. For most men, this Vivaha Yagya should be encouraged, even by persons in the renounced order of life. Sannyasis should never associate with women, but that does not mean that one who is in the lower stages of life, a young man, should not accept a wife in the marriage ceremony. All these prescribed sacrifices are meant for achieving the Supreme Lord. Therefore, in the lower stages, they should not be given up. Similarly, charity is for the purification of the heart. If charity is given to suitable persons, as described previously, it leads one to advance spiritual life. So we see everything that Krishna gives and everything that's in Krishna's culture, the Vedic culture, and everything that's in his social system, the Varnashram system, is perfect for the living entities to make advancement. So everything Krishna does is perfect. We see in all of his activities, in all of his pastimes, that the Supreme Lord is all good, absolute, all of the time. Everything that he's doing is always for the good of all living entities. Shri Shri Gaurnitai Ki Jai. Everything that he does. Even sometimes it might seem confusing. Like, how can Krishna be terrorizing the homes of Vrindavan and stealing their butter and giving it to monkeys? And then after the monkeys are satisfied, if there's still some yogurt or butter in the pots, he breaks the pots so that they still can't use it. And then if he can't steal any yogurt from the house, he goes and he pinches the babies in the house, and so they cry. And so he's, terrorizing the homes, making such a mess, making it seem like nothing's right. But actually, we understand that everything Krishna does is always all good, absolute, all the time. So even in those circumstances, when he's doing these activities, they're to relish these loving exchanges with his devotees and bring them closer to him. So everything he does personally is perfect, but then also everything he sets up is perfect. The culture related to him is perfect. The practice for attaining him is perfect. The foods that he eats are perfect. So like this, everything Krishna does is perfect, and including all of the Vedic knowledge and all of the instructions given therein are perfect. So we were reading in the purport that a sannyasi in the renounced order of life, should he encourage the marriage ceremony? And the answer was that yes, because the Lord says that any sacrifice which is meant for human welfare should never be given up. So this is a type of sacrifice, Vivaha Yagya. Yagya means sacrifice. Vivaha means, I don't know what Vivaha means, but I know Vivaha Yagya means the marriage ceremony. So that's as Prabhupada says in the purport, that's to regulate the human mind to become peaceful for spiritual advancement. And for most men, this Vivaha Yagya should be encouraged even by persons in the renounced order of life. So that's for most men, the marriage ceremony should be encouraged, so they get married and have a family, and then they're in the Grihastha order of life. But for society to function, all four of the orders need to be there. So there's the Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyas. They're sannyasi. And those are the spiritual orders. And then the material orders are the Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and the Shudra. And these four orders for spiritual life and for duties make it so that society can actually properly function. So the grihastas are there and they support those in the renounced order because they're working and they're earning money like this. And then those in the renounced order are supposed to be giving their lives fully for the spreading of God consciousness. So they're not working and earning money. And so like this, they depend on the grihastas, and then the grihastas are depending on them to come and give them spiritual knowledge. Like a sannyasi goes traditionally goes door to door and gives knowledge to the householders, um, reminding them that actually they're not the body and that the perfection of their life is to remember Krishna and to serve him and to actually go back to him, be able to fully think of him at the time of death and go back to him. So all of these orders are there. And Prabhupada said that for most men, the marriage ceremony should be recommended. But we also see so many times in Prabhupada's books that if the opportunity is there to take to brahmachari life and then just stay with it from the beginning, that is best. And like in Krishna book, Srila Prabhupada says, if one can remain a brahmachari, that will be very beneficial. Because that way they won't have to spend their time with so many other things that could distract them from Krishna consciousness. Because if someone is in the brahmachari ashram, then that means their whole time, their whole life can just be centered around serving, which I mean, more or less, that's what we all get to do at RVC, but their whole life can be centered around serving Guru and Krishna because they're there at the ashram of the Guru doing his helping him in his business for his spiritual master. And like this, they can be 24/7 engaged without having to think about, how to maintain the family and the job and the house and all of these things. So that's kind of a general idea on all of that. All these activities should be performed without any expectation of result. They should be performed as a matter of duty of son of Prita. That is my final opinion. Does anybody have any comments or questions so far? Because I'm just throwing out so many different topics. Yes.
And he steals the butter, but there's no butter. So then he passes stool and urine in my house and leaves. I'll be satisfied? Like, how does this work?
Yo, it's a very high platform for Krishna to personally come and actually reciprocate with his devotees in that way. So the devotees who are even nearby to Krishna's pastimes, such as the Aborigines and others on the outside of Vrindavan, they're praying that maybe one day I can take birth just as a blade of grass in Vrindavan, so I can somehow be involved in these pastimes. So we can see what a high uh, standard it is to actually be somehow or other involved in these pastimes personally with Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that's our aim, is that hopefully, it would be great if we could be in a house that gets uh, terrorized in such a way that the pots are broken and there's a big mess made by Krishna. And we can do that. And we've been given that opportunity by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, but that comes by seriously engaging in the program that he's given us, uh, which we know what that is. We repeat it, all of us, every time we give a class, someone will repeat what all the different steps are in that program. But it is satisfying for his devotees that are there, such as the different cowherd persons. There's cowherd women, the elder ones, who are we mainly hear about in these pastimes where he's stealing the butter and causing this ruckus. It is satisfying because there's nothing better than thinking about Krishna. He says in the Bhagavad Gita that to always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, offer your homage unto me. So the people in Vrindavan, they're not seeing him as, worshiping him, offering homage unto him, or even as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because there's these different types of relationships with the Lord that his pure devotees can actually serve him in. Like there's the conjugal relationship of a lover and a beloved, and then there's also the vatsalya relationship of like the parents and the children, and then there's friendship, and then servitorship, dasya. So there's all these different relationships the devotees can serve Krishna in. And that is something that's actually extremely profound, because normally in America, is it okay if I do like extended answer to the question? Okay. It's nice because then I get something to talk about. Before that, I don't know what we're all interested in discussing. Um, but so um yeah, before Srila Prabhupada came to America, the idea is that there's God the Father, and that's it. But what's the relationship of a son and a father? We see the son asks the father for the necessities, and the father is always serving the child. The So it's not actually so complete, or it's not actually a very high standard of love of God, because love means that you serve the beloved. So all of a sudden, when Srila Prabhupada comes here, there's books that are saying that you can have God as your son. People are thinking, wait a second, how can he be my son? Because that would mean I'm superior to him. I'm looking down on him or something. But we see, if one is the parent of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then they're like Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj, then they're always caring for him, and they're seeing themselves in a position that actually Krishna needs me. Thinking, if I don't chant these mantras for Krishna's protection, then he could be in danger. Or um, if I don't prepare this nice lunch of like 200 something preparations, then Krishna will be hungry. So the devotees in Vrindavan, they're seeing Krishna not as a supreme personality of Godhead, but as their specifically the devotees we're talking about now, like the elder cowherd people and his parents, are seeing him in this Vatsalya relationship as a parent to the child, and that relationship facilitates their service attitude to Krishna. So even sometimes Krishna showed Mother Yashoda his form as the supreme personality of Godhead. She opens his mouth and sees the whole universe in it. Or sometimes um, people are saying things like Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, but she usually forgets about it, because it's like Krishna's arrangement, and but also her desire, because has the desire to serve him as a parent. And this idea is there that, well, actually, this awe and reverence that we're fully dependent on him, it gets in the way of that service, actually, because then you can't have the idea that actually he needs me. I have to do this. I have to chant these mantras. I have to prepare these things. So these the elder cowherd women who are getting their butter stolen and yogurt pots smashed and babies pinched and all these things, for them it is actually the topmost bliss, because it's increasing their um relationship with Krishna. And it's nice for everybody, because then it gives the devotees also something to speak about. And in the Garga Samhita, there's some more details about these butter and yogurt pastimes. For instance, in one of the Krishna the Butter Thief volume of the Garga Samhita, it explains how one of these cowherd women was saying to Mother Yashoda that your son is a thief. He's stealing the butter. He's making the children cry, passing stool in the houses. He's causing so much trouble. And she's saying all this to Mother Yashoda. And they have a conversation. It's really interesting to read the conversations between the devotees, because they're, I don't know, it's something about it's really interesting. But so they have a conversation, and then um she catches him red-handed stealing the butter, and she brings him back to his home to show Mother Yashoda. And when she's walking inside, Nanda Maharaj is there. So there is this understanding that if she brings Nanda Maharaj's son in front of him in this position where like he's upset and he's caught and everything, it's not so nice, actually. So she covers Krishna's face with a cloth, and she brings him to Mother Yashoda. And when she brings him there, she says, "Look, I caught the thief red-handed." and she pulls up the cloth, and Krishna, before she pulled it up, he turned his form into the exact form of her son. And Mother Yashoda starts laughing at her and kind of like insulting her and saying, not insult, yeah, kind of making fun of her, saying some things about her. And other people see it too, and they're laughing. And so she leaves with Krishna, who's looking like her son, in hand. And when she walks out, Krishna tells her that he turns back into looking like himself. And he says, if you do this again, when you do the big reveal, I'll actually appear as your husband. So I thought that was pretty funny to read. So these are Krishna's pastimes. And in the Bhagavad Gita, he says that he comes millennium after millennium when there's a decrease in religion and a rise of irreligion. And he comes to protect his devotees and annihilate the demons. But in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that he doesn't really need to come to annihilate the demons. That can be done very easily through any of his potencies. But the reason Krishna comes is for the pleasure of his devotees, to engage in these pastimes with them. And also, this is in another purport in the Bhagavatam, to give the devotees something to chant about, because they want to speak about Krishna. So he comes and he enacts all these amazing pastimes. And then also with that Vatsalya rasa, that Vatsalya relationship with Krishna that we were speaking about. One of Krishna's names is Bhakta Vatsala, and it means that he is the protector of his devotees. He's the well-wisher of his devotees. Or in another way, he's the pure devotee of his devotees. So whatever the devotees do, he takes that service and amplifies it a thousandfold. He sees it, wow, this is like such a wonderful thing. It might be such a low, degraded person. And, somebody might say, well, he did this wrong. He did this. He did that. This offense, always forgetting you, sinful, this, that, and this. But Krishna says, yeah, but look at this. He did this for me. This service so nicely. And he values it. That's one of his qualities that's discussed in the Nectar of Devotion, gratitude. So he's got such gratitude even for something so small. Like we see Sudama Brahmana, he brought Krishna some stale chipped rice. And Krishna was saying, this is so amazing. This is such nectar. And he's eating it and relishing it and saying that just was it him or the goddess of fortune that says it was enough to satisfy the three worlds? But anyway, that statement was there. He's valuing it so much, just this stale chipped rice from his devotee Sudama Brahmana. And he also, the way he reciprocates with that is he gives Sudama Brahmana a whole palace. He gave him some stale chipped rice, and Krishna gave him a whole palace. His wife became looking like just like the goddess of fortune. They had so much opulence, servants, and all of these people. But then what did Sudama Brahmana do? He saw that actually this is Krishna's. Krishna has entrusted me with this stuff. It's all Krishna's. So he's the enjoyer of these things. So let me just use all of it for his service. And in that way, Sudama Brahmana never became bewildered like an ordinary conditioned soul. He engaged everything in Krishna's service, and he was blissful doing so. So Krishna's Bhakta Vatsala. He's the pure devotee of his devotees. There's a nice purport that explains that in here too, how the devotee wants to serve Krishna and Krishna wants to serve the devotees. So there's a really nice lecture series on this. It's 9 parts from Bhakti Vikas Swami on, because he has the Vishnu Sahasranam series that he gave part of here like a year or two ago. So in that series, there's 9 parts for Bhakta Vatsala. It's really interesting because it's interesting to hear about how Krishna is so kind to his devotees, even for things that seem small, but that's his quality. He's the most kind. Are there any other comments or questions? Mm-hmm. Is there another microphone over there?
I read maybe 2 or 3 years ago in a book about the Dakshineshwar Kali temple, and they did animal sacrifice once a year. I'm gonna assume it is a goat, and I guess I think they had baby Krishna or Krishna on the altar with Kali, which is interesting. And when they do the sacrifice, they would cover Krishna because he's vegetarian. And they didn't want him to see the sacrifice, I guess. I don't know the details. I can't really remember.
Yeah, that's kind of odd. I don't know all the intricacies of how the deity worship goes with demigods and all of those things, so I can't give a concrete statement on how odd it is, but that definitely sounds odd. But I just read recently in a purport how many of these meat eaters who follow or so-called follow the Vedic culture, they want to take meat, and so rather they say, okay, this is Kali Prasad, even if they got it from some shop or a slaughter or even or something, they say it's Kali Prasad. But Srila Prabhupada makes such an amazing um, point here that goddess Kali is the wife of Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is a Vaishnava. He does not eat meat. So goddess Kali doesn't eat meat either. So who's eating this meat that these people are calling Kali Prasad? Well, Shiva, he's very merciful. So he's giving shelter to all the ghosts and goblins and pishachas and demons, all these scary creatures, and they eat meat. So these people who are saying, "Oh, yes, this, whatever, this KFC Kali Prasad or however it goes in India, I don't know. I haven't seen the meat eating culture of it. I've only seen it here. But these people were saying, I have this Kali Prasad, Prabhupada says in the purport, they're actually just eating the ghost Prasad and those other followers of Lord Shiva. So we see that, yeah, a lot of these systems that people facilitate these activities aren't actually usually bona fide or even what they think it is. So like that, the meat eaters eating the ghost prasad. Is there a more auspicious note to end it on? Anyone has one last comment? Okay. But Krishna is Bhaktavatsala. He's the devotee of his devotees. And so if we serve him, he takes it as to be such a big deal. And the most important service to him is chanting his holy name. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.